In 2018, a strange event occurred in Thailand, attracting the attention and support of 17 countries including China, the USA, Japan, and the UK. The story began when 12 boys from a soccer team, along with their coach, went to explore the Tham Luang Nang Nong cave. The fourth largest cave in Thailand is also known as the Mermaid Cave. They entered the cave and then disappeared without a trace. It wasn't until the evening when torrential rain poured down that the families realized something was wrong. The Mermaid Cave is famous for its annual floods. When they rushed to the scene, only 13 bicycles were left scattered around, while the cave entrance had been submerged by floodwaters. The calls for the children's names echoed through the night, but only an eerie silence responded. At 1 in the morning, the Thai Navy SEAL Special Task Force arrived at the scene, ready to commence rescue operations. Shortly after, the governor also received the report and rushed to the scene to take charge. Fortunately, a foreigner who had lived in the area for many years provided a map of the cave's internal structure. Although the cave had a complex structure and narrow passages, there were a few large chambers that offered a faint hope that the children might still be alive. The SEAL team quickly prepared personnel and equipment, beginning the first expedition into the cave. They searched for traces of the children, while securing ropes to the stalactites to support subsequent rescue missions. At 5 in the morning, the team members, despite being well equipped, returned with numerous injuries. The situation inside the cave was extremely dangerous, with one member even narrowly escaping death. Yet they had only advanced a mere 800 meters out of the cave's total length of 10 kilometers. Faced with unimaginable difficulties and witnessing the dire state of the rescue team, the families of the boys felt as if they were falling into an abyss. The flame of hope in each person's heart gradually extinguished. By the second day, the situation had escalated to an international event. The local authorities called for help from all over the world. That call was met with the response of countless volunteers. Among them was a hydraulic engineer who happened to be passing by. He saw the volunteers using pumps to extract water from the cave, even though they were using the largest capacity pumps available. With his experience, he knew that this effort was like a drop in the ocean. He proactively approached an elder in the village, introduced himself, and presented his opinion. To thoroughly solve the problem of water in the cave, one must find the source of the water on the mountain. With the guidance of the elder, they discovered numerous death traps on the mountain, where the floodwaters were rushing into the cave. Only by redirecting the water flow from the mountain to the foot of the mountain can the water level in the cave be controlled. However, the difficult problem is that if they do so, the rice fields will certainly be flooded, destroying the entire crop. A whole year's effort by the farmers will go up in smoke. No matter what choice is made, it will cause heartache. Upon learning of this, the governor decided to meet directly with the farmers, hoping to find a glimmer of hope for the children. Will we lose our crops? And will doing so save the children? Honestly, I can't guarantee anything, but it will give them a chance to survive. The farmers only briefly discussed among themselves before quickly making a decision. We agree. For the children. The 5th day passed. The number of rescue personnel from all over the world had reached 1,000 people. Among them were 2 cave diving experts from the British Cave Rescue Council. They were Rick Stanton and John Valanthan. As soon as they arrived without taking a break, they immediately donned their gear and rushed to the scene. The arrival of these 2 men changed the entire course of the rescue operation. They reached the 3rd chamber, which is 1 point. Here, everyone was diligently working to pump water out, but there were still 6 kilometers to go. This situation was extremely urgent. After advancing a few dozen more meters into the cave, a pump broke down due to overload, and the technicians were trying to repair it. This was also the last point where they could surface to breathe. Rick and John Delton had to dive from here into the water, which was so murky inside the cave that visibility was nearly zero. The dangers underwater far exceeded their imagination, with sharp stalactites everywhere that could pierce them at any moment, even posing a risk of serious injuries. The terrain was extremely narrow. If they happened to get stuck in the rocky crevices, they might have to pay with their lives. The 2 of them clung to the guide rope, struggling to move forward. Every meter forward required a tremendous amount of effort, taking nearly 4 hours. Finally, they reached the T-junction 1.6 kilometers from the entrance. This was the command post. It was the first large chamber where they could avoid the floodwaters. They called out loudly for a long time but saw no sign of the children, so they had to continue searching for the next chamber. But just as they set off, the cliff was knocked down by the floodwaters and the fierce current erupted. The debris and the powerful force of the water immediately put them in a life-threatening situation. Fortunately, with their extensive experience, Rick and John successfully escaped the perilous situation. But they understood that the road ahead was even more dangerous, and they could not act recklessly. Exhausted, the 2 decided to turn back. The water level was rising at an alarming rate. When they returned to the initial diving point, the area was almost completely flooded. An engineer repairing the pump was stranded on a rock, unable to move. Rick and John had to share a diving suit with him, taking him out first and then returning for the other person. But cave diving is an extremely challenging task for an ordinary person. As soon as he dived into the water, the engineer began to show unusual symptoms. The extreme fear of being trapped in a confined dark space caused him to gradually lose his sanity. He desperately struggled to break free from Rick wanting to surface. In his struggle, he accidentally dropped Rick's spare breathing tube. However, as he was surfacing, he hit his head on the rock wall. Red blood spread across the water's surface. Rick immediately adjusted the equipment, put the breathing tube back into his mouth, and used all his strength to pull him to shore. Finally, they overcame this critical situation. Rick and John reported the complex underwater situation to the governor. To prevent casualties, the governor decided to temporarily halt all rescue operations. The governor warned the two not to enter the cave without his permission. Up to this point, the rescue team still had no news about the missing people. The families of the children began to lose hope. They only pleaded with the government to bring back the bodies of the children intact. In response to the situation, the committee held an emergency meeting to thoroughly discuss the situation in the cave. Who will go into the cave? When should they go in? Everyone thought they should wait until the rain stopped, pump out all the water in the cave and then proceed. But Rick and John had a different opinion. Because with every passing minute, the children were getting closer to death's door. As experienced cave diving experts with 30 years in the field, only they were capable of undertaking this task. They suggested launching the rescue operation immediately. However, the governor decided to wait until the rain stopped, because no one could take responsibility if the foreign volunteers lost their lives during the rescue. On the 8th day, the efforts to redirect the water flow made new progress. The first pipeline was completed, and the flood waters began to be channeled down the mountain. The rushing water, like giant swarms of ants, gradually eroded the fruits of the farmers' labor. Then on the 9th day, a strange event occurred that no one could explain. Legend has it that 300 years ago, a beautiful princess from the kingdom of Chiang Hung fell in love with a horse caretaker. Due to their differences in status, their love was forbidden by the king. The two lovers fled to Chiang Mai, Thailand and lived in a cave. When the king found out, he was furious and sent 13 assassins to hunt down the couple. During one outing to find food, the unfortunate young man was discovered and killed by the assassins. Upon hearing of her lover's death, the princess was overwhelmed with grief and took her own life with a hairpin. After her death, her blood turned into a river, and her body became a mountain. The cave where they once lived is this mysterious Tam Luang Nang Non cave. In this event, the 13 people trapped are believed to be the reincarnations of the 13 assassins from the past. Even more miraculous is that many Thai people all had the same strange dream. They dreamed of the princess who died 300 years ago. The princess requested everyone to find a high monk named Kruba Bunkum to meet her, and she would forgive and release the 13 boys. In the dream, the princess said that Kruba Bunkum is the reincarnation of the horse caretaker. But no one had ever heard of the name Kruba Bunkum before. A restaurant owner posted a search for Kruba Bunkum on Facebook with a faint hope. Soon after, many Thai people commented that they also had similar dreams. The post spread rapidly, and they actually found the high monk named Kruba Bunkum. He even came to Thailand. Even more miraculous is that initially he was preaching in Myanmar. But a few days earlier, he also had that dream and immediately set off for Thailand. When people found him, he had reached the Thai border exactly as instructed in the dream, about to arrive at the scene in Chiang Rai. The next day, Kruba Bunkum arrived in Chiang Rai. After performing a ceremony at the cave entrance, he walked in alone. It was only 2 hours later that he slowly walked out, and no one knew what had happened inside. Outside, he told everyone that the divers were about to find the boys. They are all safe and will reunite with their families in 1 or 2 days. After that, he performed a prayer ceremony for the princess right at the cave entrance and then drove away. Immediately after he left, the torrential rain in Chiang Rai suddenly stopped, and the sky cleared up. On the 10th day, the rescue operation was launched again. Rick and John were once again tasked with going down into the cave. It took 4 hours to reach the T-junction. They connected a new rope to the old section and continued exploring. Not long after, they reached Pattaya Beach, which was considered the most likely place where the children might have taken shelter. But unfortunately, there was still no trace of them. At this point, both of them gradually realized that the 13 people might have died. Alright, I'll search on the left. Just feel around to see if there are any bodies. The two of them split up, each going in a different direction, trying to find the bodies of the unfortunate as quickly as possible. 2 hours passed, and they reached the 9th chamber, 2.5 kilometers from the cave entrance. As soon as they surfaced from the water, a strong stench hit their noses. Suddenly, a flashlight beam flickered from afar. A few emaciated, gaunt figures were slowly moving towards them. And then, when they could clearly see those figures, both were stunned with amazement. The 12 children and their coach were all alive. All of them were safe and sound. For two experts with 30 years of rescue experience like Rick and John, this was truly an unimaginable miracle. Except for their gaunt faces due to lack of nutrition, they were all healthy. It turned out that during the time they were trapped, the coach taught the children how to conserve their energy, continuously meditating to soothe their fears. The snacks they brought were rationed to just 1 piece per day. Instead of drinking the murky rainwater, they found underground streams to drink clean water. Thanks to this, everyone was able to survive until now. John tried to hold back his emotions, using the camera to capture the entire scene before him. Now they had to return to the cave entrance immediately to report this good news to the rescue team. After 6 hours, they returned to the cave entrance, but on the way back, both of them calmed. They advised the staff not to announce the news that the children were still alive. However, at this moment, everyone had lost all reason due to overwhelming joy. Those old men found the children. Soon, this news spread like wildfire throughout the rescue site. In the evening, the governor came to thank Rick and John for their tremendous contributions. But at this moment, the two of them wore heavy expressions, because getting these children out was 100,000 times more difficult than finding them. In other words, this was an impossible mission. The governor affirmed that he would send the most elite SEAL team, along with the most modern equipment to participate in the rescue. But this suggestion was quickly dismissed by Rick. Because the problem did not lie with the divers or the equipment. They had once rescued an engineer who was trapped while repairing a pump in the cave. With just a few hundred meters, the fear of being confined in a dark, narrow space caused that adult man, who knew how to swim, to lose all sense of reason. Moreover, now they had to face young children, expecting them to dive over 2,000 meters underwater to get out? It's ridiculous. After all the effort to find the children, now they had to stand by and watch them die. This was something that all the rescue participants could not accept. The SEAL team decided to deliver supplies to the children first. Rick and John also came uninvited. They knew the path beyond the T-junction was very dangerous, so they came to provide guidance on necessary precautions. The most important thing was to conserve oxygen. We will go there. We will be with the children today. 3 SEAL members set off. After 7.5 hours, they delivered the supplies to the 9th chamber, where the children were safely sheltering. However, measurements showed that the oxygen level in the cave had dropped below 20%, seriously threatening the children's lives. Even worse, as they prepared to return, they discovered that John and Rick's warning was entirely accurate. The oxygen supply was nearly depleted. Among the 3 of them, only enough for 1 person to make it back. This was like adding fuel to the fire, as the oxygen in the cave was already very scarce, and it also increased the number of people trapped from 13 to 15. On the 12th day, the families were on edge, their hearts burning with anxiety. Seeing the hopeful eyes, the governor had to make a promise. I assure everyone, the children will return safely. This statement placed an enormous responsibility on him, someone who was supposed to be retired. Facing the current situation, Rick racked his brain and finally came up with an idea, but it was so crazy that he didn't dare to speak it out. Until John noticed his friend's thoughts. What are you thinking? It's just a crazy idea. Let's hear it. Rick's crazy idea was better than doing nothing and accepting defeat. We have no other choice now. We could get Harry, Dr. Harry Harris. Hearing the name Harry, John immediately guessed Rick's intention and also fell into silence. By the 14th day, the British Cave Rescue Council sent 2 more divers. They replaced John and Rick to go to Chamber 9, bringing a large amount of supplies to boost the morale of those trapped. They also brought handwritten letters from the families. Not long after, Harry, the person everyone was waiting for, finally appeared. At this time, Harry still did not know that he would become the key figure in the entire rescue operation. When Rick said that they needed his special medical skills, Harry was stunned. I am an anesthesiologist. That's right. Harry shook his head vigorously because he knew that doing so was against the professional ethics of an anesthesiologist. Moreover, anesthetizing and then taking the children out of the cave was akin to killing them. Faced with this outrageous plan, Harry found it really difficult to decide, but the truth was, this was the only way to save the children. Anyway, they were unlikely to survive. On the 15th day, a SEAL member went to deliver diving gear to the children. When he swam a third of the way, his breathing tube unfortunately got stuck in a crevice, causing a severe oxygen leak. He tried his best to salvage the situation, but in the end, he sacrificed his life. This incident put Harry in a dilemma. If the rescue operation doesn't conclude soon, not only will the children lose their lives, but there could also be more innocent people sacrificing themselves. However, if the option of using anesthesia for the rescue is employed, the children will have to endure more than 5 hours of diving underwater. This means they will have to be continuously administered anesthesia throughout the journey, not to mention the risks associated with anesthesia. Even if the oxygen masks can ensure a perfect seal, saliva produced in the mouth could cause them to suffocate at any moment. The risk of infection from needles, the weight that the divers have to carry. Each risk could turn the rescue mission into a disaster. Even if they were extremely lucky, they could only save 2 to 3 people. Harry did not have the courage to decide the fate of 13 people in an instant. But Rick said, if we do nothing, the only thing we could retrieve would be 13 bodies. If they perish during the rescue process, at least we have tried our best. In the evening, the rescue team held a secret meeting. The anesthesia plan was the only way to bring the trapped individuals out. The governor asked about the safety level of this plan. Harry appeared troubled. I cannot answer that question because I have never tried doing this. But theoretically, it is feasible. If we decide to proceed, we must be mentally prepared for potential casualties. The governor decided to take the risk. He reported this plan to the minister. After discussions, they finally decided to secretly implement the anesthesia plan. No one should know, not even the parents of the children. Everyone, do your best. If we fail, I will take full responsibility. On the 16th day, the rescue operation began. Harry took out a syringe and handed one to each diver. Each person practiced inserting and withdrawing the needle from a bottle of mineral water. The aim was to control the force when injecting, to prevent the needle from breaking. Harry carefully instructed each diver on the points to note when administering anesthesia, and that night the rescue mission officially began. They would bring the 13 trapped children out of the cave, divided into 3 groups. Amid the earnest prayers of the people, the divers took turns entering the water at chamber number 5, located in the middle of the cave. They checked the plan together one last time. Alright, I will stay here. When the first boy makes it through this long dive, I will swim to report the situation to you. If this method doesn't work, we need to know immediately before bringing any more children out. But if it works, we will continue. They are the cargo, and we are just the transporters. While waiting for the children, the divers took turns arriving at chamber 9. Hearing the news that someone was coming to take them out, every child cheered with joy. But unexpectedly, an incident occurred before the rescue operation could even begin. The coach selected the 4 lightest children. The smallest boy, named Chase, was chosen to go first. But the oxygen mask couldn't fit his face, so they had to choose someone else. Another boy put on the diving suit and swallowed a pill. Then, the boy was tightly secured, with both his hands and feet bound with zip ties. The boy, confused and worried, moved next to Harry. Harry gently reassured the boy and then injected a syringe into his thigh. Can we take you out now? The anesthetic quickly took effect, and the boy gradually became drowsy. Waiting until the boy was completely unconscious, Harry carefully placed an oxygen mask over his face, ensuring it was sealed tightly. After confirming that his breathing was normal, he secured the boy's limbs and then followed the guideline to dive underwater. The first 2-kilometer underwater transport of a person officially began. Due to the stress, Harry forgot to wait for the signal from Rick in the observation area and hastily administered anesthesia to the second boy. Did you already inject him? But once the anesthesia process had started, there was no turning back, and they had no choice but to continue. Fortunately, not long after, Rick surfaced to report that the first boy was safe. This method is effective. However, the first boy showed signs of waking up after leaving the observation area. The diver in charge immediately stopped and prepared to administer more anesthesia to the boy, but he was too exhausted. His hands were trembling, causing the syringe to fall into the water. Fortunately, he managed to retrieve the syringe and successfully administered it to the boy before he fully woke up. At this point, the second boy, under John's care, also reached the observation point. After administering more anesthesia to the boy, another incident occurred. This isn't good. He's not breathing anymore. John quickly turned the boy over. Unfortunately, the boy started breathing normally again. Let's try again. John discovered that the boy stopped breathing every time he was submerged in water, but would breathe again when brought to the surface. After several attempts, the boy's condition gradually stabilized. John felt like he had just been on a roller coaster, almost becoming the first to fail. At the same time, the first boy was safely brought out of the cave after 7.5 hours. All vital signs were normal. After 16 days under the escort of the rescue team, the boy finally bathed in the sunlight once more. To avoid alarming the family, the boy was secretly taken to an ambulance, then transferred to a helicopter and brought to the hospital in front of thousands of onlookers. It wasn't until late at night that the first 4 boys were safely brought out. Harry, who bore the heavy responsibility, did not dare to leave the cave until the doctor confirmed that all 4 boys were safe and sound. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. They not only set a precedent in rescue history but also created a miracle. Harry's mixed feelings of joy and worry at this moment were hard to put into words. Seeing the helicopters flying overhead, people gradually felt a glimmer of hope. But Rick and John did not smile, because they understood that now that they had saved 4 lives, they were considered heroes. But if even one person among the remaining were to die, their reputation would be ruined, and they might even be cursed by the public. On the 18th day, the work to divert the floodwaters from the mountain continued relentlessly. Due to the excessive water flow, the number of water pipes began to become critical. The elderly, experienced man simply asked, "Are there not enough water pipes?" Then he stood up, cut down some bamboo, and split them in half, saying, "Here are the water pipes." With his help, the project to divert the water was finally completed. But just at that moment, a low rumble echoed across the sky. Dark clouds began to gather. The rainy season was truly about to begin. In the evening, the rescue team finally found a suitable mask for Chase. But at the same time, the damn rain also came pouring down. No one could get a wink of sleep. They didn't dare to imagine how difficult the rescue would be tomorrow. On the 19th day, the torrential rain became increasingly intense. The rice fields had now turned into a sea of water. The difficulty of the rescue operation increased to an unprecedented level. Rick declared that if the next actions could not ensure his own safety, he would withdraw from the rescue mission. When they entered the cave, the water level had risen to about 3 times higher than before. This meant they had to dive a longer distance while also contending with the erratic strong currents. The level of danger was hard to predict, Everyone understood the seriousness of the situation. All eyes were on Rick, the leader. The decision to continue into the cave was in his hands. Alright, it should be fine. We'd better act quickly. Let's go, guys. This was the final rescue and also the most dangerous. Tonight, they had to give it their all to rescue the remaining people. Upon reaching Chamber 9, after several attempts, they discovered that the mask still couldn't fit Chase properly, but there was no time left to search for another mask. A diver had to manually adjust the mask. Chase was replaced once again. The remaining 3 boys set off one by one. The situation underwater became increasingly complex, with chaotic strong currents and much more limited visibility. A young diver named Chris, while redirecting the boy, accidentally dropped the guide rope. The strong current swept him further and further away. Eventually, he lost his sense of direction. Chris had no choice but to try to touch the cave floor, looking for a suitable anchor point to prevent himself and the boy from being swept away by the current. Fortunately, he managed to find an electrical wire. Following the electrical wire, he reached chamber number 4. Fortunately, the boy was still okay, but the timing between doses of anesthesia had been completely disrupted. To ensure the boy's safety, Chris had no choice but to stay there and wait for rescue. On the other side, Chase's mask was finally repaired. The boy hurriedly put on his diving suit and swallowed the pill. After being administered anesthesia, Chase finally set off. On the 18th day, Rick, the second person to set off, found Chris stopping at compartment number 4. He reassured Chris, telling him to stay put, protect the boy, and wait for Harry to come and check if the boy was safe, then follow Harry's arrangements. On the other side, all the other divers took turns entering the water. By this time, everyone in compartment number 9 had been evacuated. Not long after, Chris finally waited for Harry. Even though his spirit was nearly broken, he still persevered in protecting the boy beside him. After checking, Harry confirmed that the boy had no serious issues, but he also perceptively noticed the fear and self-blame in Chris's heart. "Do you need me to take over the rest of the way?" "No need, let me handle it. Ahead is a U-turn." "Alright," Rick said. "Let him arrange everything. I think you've already completed the hardest part. The remaining part is short, why not let me handle it? That way, I can also be proud of being one of the rescuers." Rick said to do whatever is best for the boy. "I really think that's the best way." With the art of words, Harry eased the guilt in Chris's heart while also presenting the optimal solution. The remaining part was challenging, but in the end, everyone returned safely. The rescue operation at Tham Luang Nang Non Cave was a complete success. All 13 people who were trapped were miraculously saved. At this moment, the joy of saving their compatriots and triumphing over nature overwhelmed the rescuers with emotion. They hugged each other, cheering, with tears streaming down their faces. More than 5,000 volunteers from various countries came together to accomplish an impossible mission. During the rescue operation, they forgot about skin color, nationality, and cultural differences. Together, they wrote a heroic chapter in rescue history that will never fade. Everyone was immersed in the joy of victory. Only Harry, after a brief moment of joy, quietly sat down in a corner. Just now he received a phone call. His father had passed away. Now he will never have the chance to see his father again. On the 19th day, the rescue equipment was gradually dismantled. Each volunteer returned to their country, their family, resuming their normal lives, quietly living their own lives. All the children received timely treatment, and their health indicators returned to normal. With just a short period of rest, they will be reunited with their families and return to normal life. In this operation, 2 SEAL members sacrificed their lives. One was Shaman Kunan, who died from drowning in the film. The other succumbed to a blood infection during the rescue operation. After the operation ended, the Tham Luang Nang Non cave was completely flooded for 8 months. Farmers who suffered crop losses were also adequately compensated by the government. The coach and 3 stateless boys were granted citizenship by the Thai government. The rescue participants came from 17 countries around the world, totaling over 5,000 people. The success of this rescue operation is perhaps not a miracle, but rather the great survival instinct of humanity throughout history. It is thanks to this instinct that humans have been able to continuously rebuild and progress after countless hardships and natural disasters over the past 6 million years. And that instinct is the respect and cherishing of life. Perhaps we find it difficult to sacrifice ourselves like the characters in movies, but when we encounter those who dare to stand up for the lives and rights of others, let us not hesitate to offer praise and applause. Do not let that instinct gradually disappear in indifference and ridicule. The value of a movie lies in its reputation, while the value of a film review lies in the perception. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie. What do you think of this movie? Please comment below.